evening at 6 and 9.
From the studios of EWTN, this is Open Line. With today's host, Father Larry Richards. In North America, call toll-free 1-833-288-EWTN. That's 1-833-288-3986. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985. You can also text the letters EWTN to 55000 or send an email to openline@EWTN.com.
Welcome to EWTN's Open Line Thursday. Father Larry Richards is in the house. We're going to talk the new evangelization. If you'd like to be on the program, the number is 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. If you're outside the United States and Canada, your number is 1-205-271-2985, and we'll put you straight to the front of the line at 1-205-271-2985. You can always send us an email, openline@EWTN.com, or you can text your question to Father Larry. Text the letters EWTN to 55000. Wait for a response. Text your first name and your question. Message and data rates may apply. I'm Jack Williams, the lovely and talented Michael McCall producing the program. Your call screener is Ryan Penny, and Jeff Burson handling our social media endeavors. So if you are watching on YouTube or Facebook Live, first of all, my apologies that you have to look at Father Larry for the whole hour.
Hey.
But you can type a question into that chat window, and we may get to it by the end of the hour. And our host, as he is every single Thursday, the dashing and handsome Father Larry Richards. How are you?
It's too late. You're too late. You see what I got to put up with, people of God? Do you see why I'm going to get to go to heaven? No
Father
cross,
no
no crown.
Father of no mercy. I see how it is.
Yeah.
Hey, so Father Larry, you have the great privilege to speak at a lot of men's conferences around the country. You've got that wonderful book that you authored called Be a Man.
Today's first reading.
I firmly believe that that we are entering. There have been various ages throughout the church, and I think that we're entering the age of Our Lady. And Sacred Scripture tells us that the woman will crush the head of the serpent. And I firmly believe that we men are here to clear the way so that the woman doesn't have to worry about anything but crushing the head of the serpent.
Exactly.
But in order for us to clear that path and to be the evangelists that we need to be, to till the soil, as it were, we really need to stand up and be righteous, godly men in the eyes of our Lord. What are the things when you're out there that you see that are holding men back the most from being the man that God has called them to be?
Selfishness is what I think is so big in everything. I'll be in Lexington, Kentucky for their men's conference this Saturday. And, when I talk about, one of my talks is being a man. And so when we focus on that reality, being a man is you give up your life for others so others can live, that you protect them, that you do all this stuff. And too many men today, it's all about them. About what am I going to get out of this? And again, even if you want to be a boy who wants to be a man, you're secular. You go into the service, and if you go into the service, you're going to be, they're going to hurt you, if you will. They're going to, put you through a horrible first 2 weeks, and then they're going to, the rest of your time there, it's about thinking of others first and knowing you might have to give up your life. And what we need in the Catholic Church is our men to sit there and say, well, I don't go to church because I don't get anything out of it, or I don't have to do that. Instead of I go to church because this is what it is to be an example of God. This is what it is to protect my family. This is what it is to be a spiritual leader. Instead of I talk about the reality that too many men have stayed teenagers instead of becoming men. Teenagers, it's all about them. Men, it's always about others. But too many guys, even their 50s and 60s, are still teenagers. They never got out of that thing, and so they got to grow. In my humble opinion.
I don't know if we've talked about it on this program or not, but you talk about, a lot of men that have remained, 17 years old. I think that screen time has a lot to do with that, and our
Sure.
lack of interaction with other men. And there was a survey by one of the dating services. One of the secular dating services did a survey, and this is a big operation. This isn't a fly-by-night group. This is a group that everybody would recognize their name if I were to use it. And one of the questions was, what are you looking most for in a husband? The number one response from the females to that question was a man who doesn't play video games.
Oh, my goodness. There you go. I've never played video games my whole life. I don't even know what. But it's amazing how many people do that. And I'm just thinking, what a waste of time, but still. Jack, you play video games, Jack?
You know what? I've never been what I would call, heavily into them, but I have played them. I played them with the kids when they were small. We would have the more innocent kind of Mario games and things that I would play with them. But I've never gotten into it in a big way. But you see, a lot of these people that really their social development, and that's a large part of being a man, is retarded by the fact that they don't ever have interactions the way they should with other men.
Exactly, as the Old Testament says, is iron sharpens steel, so one man sharpens another. And like even today in the gospel, Jesus sent them out 2 by 2. So today in the gospel, he sends them out 2 by 2, and the first reading is take courage and be a man. And so, like I told everybody at the daily mass today, I said, you can't do it alone. If you do it alone, you're going to fail. It's just the way it is. God didn't create us that way. He created us to be with each other, and then when he called us to ministry, he called them and sent them out 2 by 2. So many reasons for that we need to be doing that. So again, we just need to be doing that. Men need men, and we need to come together and not just sit there and watch YouTube or whatever we're watching. Even if it's Skype right now and you're looking at me, there's more things to be doing. So.
We've got an email from Joseph. He says, when family members fall away from the faith, can I do anything to merit their salvation at judgment while they're still alive?
No, you can't do anything because Jesus did everything. So what you can do is you can take what Jesus did and focus it on them. Again, I've used the example about like the rays of the sun are everywhere, and if you take a magnifying glass and you place it over a certain thing, the rays of the sun will go through that, intensify it, and set it on fire. We become spiritual magnifying glasses when we pray with people, but the biggest thing to know, it's nothing that you do. It's all the grace of God. You're just focusing his grace on them. So when you pray for them and pray for them and pray for them, you're focusing God's grace on them. And if you want to take it to the next level, then you fast for them. And then again, it's still all God, but you're cleaning the spiritual magnifying glass, you will, by fasting. And then God can even all the more do something with them. So what you can do is you can pray for them. You can do nothing for their salvation, and you can't do anything for your salvation. It's all been done for you by Jesus Christ on the cross. Anything else is Pelagianism, which is heretical. You can cooperate with what Jesus did for you. You can surrender to that. You can work with it and take the grace and live it by faith and works. But until we sit there and know it's all Jesus and not us, we're going to have issues.
Robert writes in, Father Larry, I have a question about communion. Mm-hmm. If I go to Vigil Mass in, let's say, the Baltimore Basilica, and then Sunday to the Cathedral in Baltimore, can I receive communion for the same Mass but different churches?
Sure. And again, you're allowed to receive communion twice in a day. So... And again, it's one of those rules that even the priest or the pastor can set you free. And allow you to do that. The main reason the rule is there is because some people used to go from mass to mass to mass just to get indulgences, and it became a thing that instead of being in a relationship with God, it was kind of like a superstitious thing, and so the church says, twice a day so you can receive communion. So it's put there for a reason, and so, again, it's not there just to sit there and say, no, you can't receive God twice. Yeah, I know. I mean, like there's a rule, there's a priest, you're not allowed to say more than 3 masses in a day. But I've set up to 6 masses in a day because of pastoral need. You know, what am I going to say? Well, sorry, I can't say 3 anymore. I've already been done. So you can't receive communion. You can't get the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus today because of the rule that says I can only say 3. Again, the rules are there specifically for reasons, but sometimes pastoral reasons takes us beyond them.
We're talking the new evangelization here on EWTN's Open Line Thursday. Father Larry Richards is in the house. We've got a couple of open phone lines for you at 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. If you're outside the United States and Canada, we'll put you straight to the front of the line at 1-205-271-2985. Again, that's 1-205-271-2985. You can always text your question to Father Larry. Text the letters EWTN to 55000. Wait for a response. Text your first name and your question, message, and data rates may apply. Open Line Thursday, talking the new evangelization with Father Larry Richards.
I'm Doug Keck. This is an EWTN Bookmark Brief. Just had the pleasure of speaking with Jerry Usher and Debbie Georgianni, the radio hosts of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, about their new book, Take Two, Real Life Stories, Loved Ones Who Left the Faith. Tell us, guys, what's this book about? Why should someone pick it up?
It's the number one prayer intention that we hear on Take Two. And so we asked our listeners, we went to our listeners and we asked them if they would contribute their real life story, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we came down to 12.
Do you find that the millennials' questions are similar or dissimilar to some of the older people that you've dealt with over the years?
I think they're listening to the show and listening to the older people, and they're resonating with them what the older listeners are sharing with.
Right. Take Two, Real Life Stories, Loved Ones Who Left the Faith, by our good friends Jerry Usher and Debbie Georgianni. Don't forget, the book's available through the EWTN Religious Catalog, EWTNRC.com for all things Catholic. Thanks for stopping by. This has been an EWTN Bookmark Brief.
Now comes today's quote from Mother Angelica's perpetual calendar. We can live a life of pretense. We can live a false life, thinking others are at fault and that we are perfect. Then we never take responsibility for the future that is ours. We can live in a very false world. Mother Angelica's perpetual calendar features an inspirational message for each day of the year. It's available from the EWTN Religious Catalog at EWTNRC.com.
This is Open Line on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. If you have a question, call 1-833-288-EWTN. That's 1-833-288-3986. Outside North America, call 1-205-271-2985. Or send us an email to openline@EWTN.com.
You know, if you want the news of the day presented from a strictly Catholic perspective, check out EWTN News Nightly tonight at 9 Eastern Time. Tracy Sable and the whole gang will take you through the events of the day. Again, that's EWTN News Nightly tonight, 9 Eastern Time, right here on EWTN Television and Radio. During the break, Father Larry was complaining and fussing about the weather in San Diego. Can you believe it?
2 weeks ago.
You
exactly.
want to talk about your first world problems. My goodness.
It was beautiful but cold. It was chilly. One day, it got to be colder in San Diego than it was in Erie, Pennsylvania. So there.
I think that's our Lord trying to send you a message.
Exactly.
You can run, but you can't hide. A couple of open phone lines for you at 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Grab one of these open phone lines. That's what David did in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a first-time caller listening on Oklahoma Catholic Radio. David, thanks for holding. Welcome to the program.
Hello, David.
Thank you very much. I listen to you all the time. With this recent March for Life, a question just came across my mind.
Okay.
When an abortion takes place, aren't both sexes, male and female, guilty of a mortal sin that instigated that abortion? And how do they get back in the good graces of the church?
Well, first of all, having abortion is a serious sin. Of course it is. Now, when it comes to mortal sin, we don't know what's going on in the person, so it takes serious matter, full knowledge, full consent, just to be restate that. But of course, it's murder. It's the worst thing anybody could ever do. Now, let's say, if the husband or the man who produced that child or is the instrument of life to that child participates in it and knows about it and does nothing, yes, he would go in and commit serious sin too. But if he doesn't know anything about it, of course, if she does it without telling him and everything else, then he would not be in serious sin for that thing. He'd be in serious sin if he had sex with her outside of marriage and all that kind of stuff. There's other things that he could be into. But again, no, to commit sin, you got to know it's got to be wrong. Abortion is. You got to know it's wrong, which means you've been catechized, and then you got to say, I'm going to do it anyway with full consent of the will. So, of course, it's a serious sin, but to be forgiven of any of those sins, you go to confession. And Pope Francis in the Year of Mercy gave the ability to forgive the sin of abortion to all priests. And because every bishop, it was always reserved for the bishop to do, but 99% of the bishops gave that to all their priests so they could sit there and be the instrument of forgiveness for that. But it's such a serious sin that the bishops wanted to make it clear that you're murdering somebody. But of course, when a person repents, they go to confession, they can get brand new. Like I'm always telling people, because I hear a lot for men's conferences, women's conferences, that people come in and talk about having an abortion. And I always talk about how to get healing for that. And I talk about the reality that what the person has to do is confess that sin, ask God if he gave her a boy or a girl, name their son or daughter, and reach into heaven and ask them for forgiveness. Because where we put a period, God puts a comma. And so God is the God of life, and he can do that. But absolutely, it's terribly, terribly wrong. And yes, but someone can go to confession and be forgiven.
Does that help, David?
Does this apply to like real young people that really aren't mature? You know what I'm saying?
All sin applies the same way. They have to have serious matter, full knowledge, and full consent. So somebody, let's say, again, someone commits abortion and they don't know it's wrong. Well, it'd still be seriously wrong. What they did killed another human being, but they might not be in mortal sin because they didn't know it. They didn't know it was wrong. They were taught by liberal society that that's just a piece of meat in there and it's not. So if they have no clue about that, then it wouldn't be mortally sinful. It's still completely evil what they did, but whether they went into mortal sin, it depends on where their heart is. That's why we can never say to anyone they're in mortal sin. The only one that knows if someone else is in mortal sin is, one, if it's the person itself, and two, the priest who's hearing their confession. We can say someone committed a serious act, and that's serious matter. Of course we can, and we must proclaim that, but we can never tell unless, and people do it all the time, but I'm saying we can't. It's the thing, because the teaching of the church is clear. So again, they have to know it's serious. It is. They have to know it's serious, and then they got to decide to do it anyway for a mortal sin to occur.
833-288-EWTN is our toll-free number, 833-288-3986. Next stop is Camdenton, Missouri. Robert is in Missouri listening on Covenant Radio. Robert, you're on with Father Larry.
Hello, Robert.
Oh, good. Hi, Father Richards.
What's up?
It is Father Richard, isn't it?
Yes, I go by Father Larry,
okay.
But yes,
Okay. Just two questions regarding Ash Wednesday, please.
Okay.
What does it mean when they put the ashes on their forehead and say ashes to ashes and dust to dust?
Well, they normally say when they put it on your forehead, they say, remember, man, that you are dust, and unto dust you shall return. And first of all, it's an act of humility. And humility means from the earth. So it reminds you that who you are. Sometimes people think that they're in control of everything. But when we get this on Ash Wednesday and we begin the Lenten season, it's to remind you that you're going to die someday. And that everything we all think's the greatest, and I'm the greatest, you're going to be dead and you're going to be in the ground someday. We all are. And we're all going to become ashes. That's who we are. But the greatest thing is when we do this and the priest puts this ashes on someone's head, we do it on the sign of the cross. That though we are ashes, though we are nothing, we are redeemed ashes. So we always have hope. That's why God comes to us. And one of the greatest things I talk about almost every Ash Wednesday is that when Jesus Christ became a man, that he too now becomes dust because he takes on humanity now. He resurrects. But wow, when the God of the universe, when he becomes all things that we are, including dying, then that's the greatest audacity of humility. But for us, it's just a sign of humility. It's a sign of penance, and it's something to remind us who we are and what's going to happen to us, but to remind us that also that's always has hope. What's your second question?
One more question. Second question is, we had a priest here at St. Anthony Catholic Church in Camden here, and he was from Mexico, I think.
Uh-huh.
When it came time for Ash Wednesday, he would take the ash and just put the vertical line of the sign of the cross, and he wouldn't put a horizontal line. So
I have no idea why, but I mean, again, the sign of the cross is part of the whole thing of ashes to give us hope that when God became man and he died on the cross, he became ashes too, but he resurrected, and so shall we.
833-288-EWTN is our toll-free number. 833-288-3986. We got a text from Ernest, and he says, how can I be an effective evangelizer? Any suggestions?
Oh, the best and first thing is you pray for people. So again, my way of telling people how to evangelize is three things. First, you pray for people. So you should have a list of people in your family and your friends that you're praying for them every day. Second, you love people because God is love. So we show them who God is in our life. So we love them, and they should see us as the most loving person they know. Why? Because Jesus, who is God, said, all people know you're my disciples because you love one another. So they should see us as loving in our type personality. And then the third thing we do is we witness to them. And that means we share with them what God in his mercy has done for us. Like, again, we hear in the gospel, after he heals the person, it says, now go and make it clear what God in his mercy has done for you. And so it's so different because often we Catholics too, not just Catholics, but Christians, we're always saying what we do for God. I go to church every week. I'm a Eucharistic minister. I'm an extraordinary minister of Holy Communion. I say my rosary every day. I do this, I do this, and it's all about us. Where when we're evangelizing, it has to be about God. So I go and I tell people, this is what God has done for me, and this is what God can do for you. He loved me. He died for me. He saved me with his blood. He keeps me with his Eucharist. He feeds me. He does all these things. And so when we can get, as Catholics, it's always more about what God has done for us instead of what we have done for God, then we're evangelizing, and that helps tremendously.
833-288-EWTN is our toll-free number. Next up is obviously a brilliant caller, Father Larry. Rich calling from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Well, it's about time we get people from Pittsburgh.
First-time caller. Rich, you are on with Father Larry.
Hello, Rich.
Hi. Hi, Father Larry.
And how are you?
Blessed as you.
There you go. What's up?
Yeah. A disturbing thing, with the right to life is the other end of it is euthanasia.
Sure.
Which is becoming a prevalent thing anymore.
Sure is.
A lot of states are adopting it, and part of Europe and everything.
Yep.
And what can we do to fight against this? Seems like a tide that's coming about that next.
And again,
praying,
Yes, and praying's always the core thing. Again, prayer is more powerful than a nuclear bomb, and that's what that's how we closed an abortion clinic in here. Is all prayer in Erie. We did it through prayer, through adoration. But the same thing. First of all, we have to talk about it. That the reality that God is the author of all life, and He has to be in charge of all life from the beginning to the end. to the natural end. Now, again, the church is clear that we can let people die naturally. There's no worries about that. They don't need to get extraordinary means. But we can't take life. We can't say, I don't want to suffer, so I'm going to take my own life. Because that way it's a spitting in God's face, if you will, and saying, you're not going to be in charge of my life. I am in charge of my life. So again, everybody used to agree with this, and now nobody does. But what we need to do as a church is not just say it's wrong, because they're not going to listen to us. We have to use the logical reasons why it's wrong to take your own life or to euthanize people, and we got to do that and build it on the natural law, how this is wrong. And we just have not been doing a good job with that. I think primarily because we focus on abortion, as we should, because we're taking innocent life. But when someone is especially if they're taking their own life, they're making that decision. It's still wrong, but that's why the focus on we're trying to protect babies, but we need to be doing both. And so, like you said, that's a very important thing, and we need to be teaching more about it, evangelizing more about it, but talking about the truth and why suffering is important and life is important.
Just getting started on an open line Thursday. A couple of open phone lines for you at 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. It's EWTN's Open Line Thursday with Father Larry Richards.
EWTN Radio posts 11 podcasts every weekday and over 70 per week. Never miss your favorite EWTN radio show. Go to EWTN.com/radio/podcast. 60 Seconds with Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen.
Because God knows all things and because He is Creator, it follows that every single thing in the world was made according to an idea or a pattern existing in the divine mind. Look round about you. You see a bridge, a statue, a painting, a building. Before any of these things began to be, they existed in the mind of the one who designed or planned them. In like manner, there is not a tree, a flower, a bird, an insect in the world that does not in some way correspond to an idea existing in the divine mind.
The people you know and trust are on EWTN.
When I was outside of the church, there was always an unsettled feeling. There was always a feeling of something missing and something not complete. The deal clincher is we found our way to our parish, and we met just an incredible pastor. We learned things that we'd never been taught. Wouldn't be the person that I am without the church and without the sacraments, particularly the Eucharist. I can't live without it.
If you've been away from the Catholic Church, visit CatholicsComeHome.org.
Hi, this is Cy Kellett. Later today on Catholic Answers Live, we've got Jimmy Akin, both hours, open forum. Catholic Answers Live, 6 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio. Now, back to Open Line with Father Larry Richards.
This is Open Line on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Still a couple lines open at 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Right back at it. Another first-time caller. Eric is in Columbus, Ohio, listening on St. Gabriel Radio. Eric, thanks for holding. Welcome to the program.
Hello, Eric.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure, what's up?
Yeah, I actually have a question, and then I'd just like to say a little something right after I ask the question.
Sure.
Is why do you, personally, why do you think that God allows, kids to be, beaten, by their parents or someone else, or even murdered? Mm-hmm. And I've asked this question to people before in the church and out of the church.
Sure.
And it seems like they always say one of two answers. They either say that God gave people free will to either do bad or good, which doesn't really make too much sense because, if you're an adult and you're hurting a 2-year-old, that 2-year-old doesn't have the means to be able to stop you from doing that, even though they have free will also.
Sure.
And another thing that people say is, well, the devil is causing people to do that, which neither one of those really answer the question of why does God allow the murder of children when supposedly God is an all-loving father who especially loves little kids? Why would he
Sure.
allow that to happen? Why wouldn't he step in and stop it?
Well, first of all, the answer is correct at the free will. I mean, God allows free will. He created us out of nothing, and he let Adam and Eve sin, and we all die, and all this stuff, and this God of love let this happen. But if you only look at life from this earth, then all of life stinks. People die, you get kids. I mean, you could say then God kills people, right? Because you have babies that get cancer and die, or you have babies that suffer, you have babies that get in accidents. So the first part of why people beat kids is because of the freedom they have. Like I could come, and if I didn't like Jack today, I could take a bat and beat the heck out of him. I have that free will. And Jack has the ability to stop me now, but not if he's sleeping, he has no ability. But it's because of my free will that I can kill Jack if I wanted. There are days. But anyway, but the other reality is that God takes what we do and he brings good out of it. The ultimate thing was when Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the Son of the everlasting Father, he allowed us, because of our free will, to kill Jesus. And he watched it. And yet, because of that, God goes into the world. That would be the most horrendous thing ever. And yet God changed that and made that for your salvation and my salvation. When you look at the world only from the little bit of space we have from birth to death, everything is bad. You can't explain it. It doesn't matter. All that stuff. But when you put it in the view of eternity, that 100 billion years from now, we're going to look back at our time on earth and say, remember that suffering? Remember that? I can't remember. It's so far past. So we have to always put things, that free will, of course, because God gave us that, but always put things in the perspective of eternity. And eternity is what, there, Our Lady at Fatima and Jesus says, in the world you will have trouble. Our Lady of Fatima says, I can't promise you happiness on earth. This is not what we were created for. We were created for eternity. And no matter all the evil, and you're not the first one to ask this question. This question's been asked since before Christ came to this earth. The question of evil, because that's exactly what this is. And there is no magic answer to it. You can keep asking everybody you want. You're going to get things and like them and not like them. But it's a question that has no answer. All we can do is sit there and give some explanation. But again, it's always so bad when you think about innocent people especially getting hurt.
I think that was Thomas Aquinas, I believe, that said God would permit evil for one of two reasons, either to keep a greater evil from occurring or to affect a great good that could not have come about without the evil.
Yes. And again, that's all philosophical and that's all the things. And people have answered this so many different ways. So keep searching.
I kind of tend to believe that, and these are very good questions, and
absolutely
questions that people should definitely ponder and wrestle with in their mind. But I have a firm belief that should we have the great fortune of spending all eternity with the Creator of the universe, that one of the first realizations we'll have is we'll look back at a little child or a baby in that situation, and we'll wish we had been them.
Sure. But I love to use the example of, if a child has pneumonia or something and he's 4 years old and you have to take him to the doctors and the kid begs you, please, Daddy, don't let that doctor give me a shot. You know how much I hate shots. I'm very afraid. Don't let him do that to me, Daddy. And then you get him to the hospital and the doctor says he has to get a shot or he's going to die. And then you as Daddy hold him. And as the kid gets his shot and the kid looks at you and says, I thought you loved me. I thought you would take care of me. I thought you would protect me. And look at you held me as I got that pain getting me to that doctor. And so the kid will never understand until he's older. But it was the Father had to do that, and sometimes we have to watch the pain, and yet God promises all things will work together for good, that He's going to bring good out of it. But still, it doesn't take away from all the pain that's there now in all of our lives.
833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Next up is Tom in Seattle, Washington, listening to EWTN on Sacred Heart Radio. Tom, you're on with Father Larry.
Hello,
Good afternoon,
Tom.
gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Very blessed. What's up?
Question, Father. Question.
Uh-huh.
Got a good friend here in Seattle area, practicing Buddhist. And he says there is no difference that he can find between nirvana and the bardo. I don't know how familiar you are with Buddhism and that, and the beatific vision. I've tried my best to explain it to him. I'm an aviation engineer. I'm not a theologian.
There you
Please
go.
help.
Well, I'm not a theologian myself, but the reality is the biggest thing is that we talk about relationship and that nobody loses their identity when it comes to heaven. Whereas nirvana and that, you just keep coming back until you get it, and then you all become part of this oneness with the universe, and that oneness with the universe is no longer a personal reality. You become one. You get kind of lost. You get lost into the identity of everything. Whereas with us, like people often ask about, like, do I know my mother? Or I know my grandmother? Or I know my spouse in heaven? And I go, does Jesus know his mother? Does Jesus know his grandmother? Of course he does, because we still stay individual human beings. I will for all eternity be Larry. That's the reality. I'll be transformed, but I'm still going to never lose my sense of self. That's what human beings are. Whereas Buddhism, my understanding of it anyway, is that you become one with all things, and you just have this, forever and ever. But the beatific vision is where God loves us, where we love him, and we will love each other individually for all eternity. Hope that helps.
Does that help, Tom?
That does, Father. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Have a blessed Lent and all that, okay?
Thank you.
Same
God
to you,
bless
Tom.
you.
833-288-EWTN. Still time for your calls at 833-288-3986. Next up is Rita. She's also in Columbus, Ohio, listening on St. Gabriel Radio. Rita, thanks for holding. What's your question for Father Larry?
Hello, Rita.
Hi, Father Larry. You're my son and I's favorite to listen to on the radio.
Oh, thank you.
I have a couple of questions about annulments I'm confused on. I'm a 63-year-old lady. It's taken me 2.5 years, but I'm going to be becoming Catholic, working that direction. To me, my story is a little confusing. I'll make it fast as I can here. 25 years ago, I was divorced. I wanted to be, sadly, had no understanding. I mean, I was a Christian, but no Catholic understanding of. So anyway, remarried, was remarried 24 years, and 5 years ago, found out my husband, I knew it, but he wouldn't admit it, was having an affair. He finally got caught this last year. So after 6 years, it is going to end our marriage. So I very much did not want that. So this is my question. When I was remarried, I was told that I was in mortal sin because of remarriage. And I know one of the criteria for being in mortal sin is that you have full knowledge. And that I didn't understand, because I definitely had never heard, and I know this is hard for some priests or Catholics to believe, in my higher Protestant churches, it was not taught remarriage was wrong. It was taught divorce is not good, it's a sin, but it's forgivable. In my eyes, getting remarried was the right thing to do, better than living with someone. So that's my first question.
Okay.
You want me to wait then for my second?
Yes,
Yeah, there's a reason you were confused by that answer, Rita.
Yes. Again, that if you don't know it's a sin, it's just not a sin. Objectively, it's wrong, but it's not a mortal sin for you. Again and again, always go back to the teaching of the church. Serious matter, full knowledge, full consent. So if you didn't know, then it wouldn't have been mortally sin for you. Would it have been wrong? Yes, but you would not have subjectively incurred mortal sin. So when someone just said to you, you're in mortal sin, well, That's a bad theology, and I always say, let's go back to the teaching of the church, and the church has teaching for a reason, so that we can sit there and not just pow on guilt to people. So again, if you were still in that marriage, you'd have to still get it annulled and all that kind of stuff. But now that that one's ended too, you are free. You're not married to anybody. And even with like in the teaching of church, if you were married the first time, the second one wasn't a marriage anyway, because you weren't free to marry, so you weren't able to enter into that reality. So it would be just like living in sin anyway, because you were not free to marry. A Catholic must be married in the Catholic Church for it to be valid. But again, you didn't know, so it would not have been mortally sinful for you. It has still been objectively wrong. And I hope everybody is understanding this, but look it up. This is the teaching. What's your second question?
I was told I could not receive a blessing even by our priest because I was remarried. I was told I was in mortal sin, and I'm very thankful.
Well, even if you're in mortal sin, you can get a blessing, for goodness sakes. I mean, holy cow. I would find another parish myself. I would get out if someone had says, you can't even get a blessing because you're in mortal sin. Because he cannot say that. He doesn't know your soul unless you're going to confession. And if you're going to confession, then he should give you absolution and a course. Because if you're in RCIA, you can go to confession and get forgiven of that sin.
Okay, I wasn't in it yet, but I was told I could not go to confession because I was in mortal sin. So it was very hard for 2 years.
Confession?
That's what I didn't understand, and that's kept me out for 2 years. But luckily, the Lord wants me in, so I've said, Lord, I'll wait.
And you're in Columbus. There's lots of parishes in Columbus. I'm there all the time. I'm going to be there tomorrow. Go to a place where you... Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I said Columbus. It's Newark, but that's close by. Okay, then my second question, please, and I know I'm taking a long time.
That's okay.
I think you touched on it. I was told by the priest where I'm going now that if I wanted an annulment, which I do not plan to remarry, but they said I might want to make it right with the church, that I would have to do 2 annulments. And my question, I didn't ask it at the time because I didn't want to seem argumentative, but I'm like, if my second marriage was not valid in the church's eyes, why would I need to do it?
And again, you'd have to get an annulment for your first wedding. And again, let's say you married a Catholic the first time. So what that is called is a defective form, because if you were not, and it's not in a full annulment, and the second one would not be a full annulment either, it'd be a defective form. You only need 1 annulment because the teaching of the church is you were married once. If you got married 5 times after that first one, then they're all defects of form, which means it's not a full annulment. It's because you were still married to the first one. Now if you were married the first time and you got an annulment, and then you got married a second time, and then you get that one and you weren't married, yes, you'd have to get a second annulment, but you weren't even Catholic the first time. So again, and it's pretty, marriage issues are not that easy. I mean, because sometimes people have been married, they married a Catholic, they didn't know it's a lot of stuff that goes on. But again, no, you did not know these things. So what we should be doing is helping you because you want to get everything right. But you don't have to get any annulments now because you're not married to anybody. Now, if you were to want to get remarried, they're going to have to look at that first wedding and say, was it a valid wedding? Meaning, because we believe that 2 Christians can get married, and that would be valid. But if a Christian and a Catholic gets married outside or without the permission of the church, it's an invalid thing. So that you wouldn't have to even get an annulment for that. But if you got married to another Christian, you got married in the Christian church, which you were a thing, that would have to be annulled. But the second marriage, you'd have to call it a defective form because you were still married to the first person in the first place.
And Father, just for the sake of clarification, at the risk of you hitting my knuckles with the ruler, a marriage is either valid or it is not valid. There are no full or partial annulments. I think what you're referring to is the process. It's a defective form.
It's a process. And so, yes. So
it's either a formal case or it's not a formal case.
Exactly. When I say it's not a full annulment, that's
probably not the best term.
No. But that's the way we talk about it as priests. It's not a full annulment. But anyway, you don't need it because it was an invalid thing. So it's again, you were married the first time. And again, this is all in 3 minutes on the radio, as opposed to sitting there going through your whole history with you and looking where you got married and who you got married to and how is it married. And again, you should need to be sitting down and talking with the priest. But the priest, if he says to you immediately, well, you're in mortal sin, then that's not a good sign.
Very good, Rita. Thanks so much for your phone call. We'll keep you in our prayers for sure. New from EWTN Publishing here in February is Making a Holy Lent, 40 meditations to prepare you for the church's holiest season, from Father of Mercy, Father William Casey. Lent calls us to ponder the reality of Jesus Christ and the salvation he offers, and Father Casey will turn our attention to Jesus in brief reflections on topics ranging from the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist to the role of our Blessed Lady, the role that she plays in everyday prayer life. Again, that's Making a Holy Lent, 40 meditations to prepare you for the church's holiest season, by Father William Casey, available at EWTNRC.com. Next up is Kathy in St. Johnsville, New York, listening on Pax et Bonum Radio. Kathy, you're on with Father Larry.
Hello, Kathy.
Wow, thanks, Father Larry. Good to hear your voice.
Good to talk to you. What's up?
Well, I have a question about parish renewal, because up here in upstate New York, the parishes are all gray-haired people mostly and shrinking. And so I've been interested in parish renewal for a long time and kind of nudging, and I've bought like 10 copies of that Divine Renovation and passed them out to parish leaders, and said, let's read this and let's talk about this, and but it doesn't seem like we're making a whole lot of progress even after a couple years. It seems, I don't know, we have a lot of good leaders. They work really hard, and they're trying, and they don't want to chase people away, I think, is maybe some of it, by saying, there's really more, because people are maybe comfortable where they are. But I don't kind of know what I can do to keep encouraging without sounding like I've arrived and you haven't arrived.
No, none of us have arrived. I sure haven't arrived. Jack really hasn't arrived.
And by the way, Kathy, neither one of us take offense to the fact that you referred to these white-haired people.
Anyway, Kathy, the reality is, like I always tell people, like one of my kids was being ordained. He says, you got me some advice, Father? And I says, yes. 1, be a holy priest, and 2, never settle for the status quo. And what happens is too often we priests settle for the status quo. And when the priest settles for the status quo, the whole parish can die. It's just that simple. We always have to be saying, St. Francis said 2 weeks before he died, up until now, brothers, we have done nothing. We're always looking for, where's God calling us? We're always growing, because if we're not growing, we're dying. That being said, the best way to do that in so many places is through retreat programs, or the CHIRP program, or a Curcio, or some kind of retreat or renewal program, because what has to happen is people got to get out of their just going through the motions at church and have an experience of the risen Jesus, and how Jesus is calling them to grow and love and be all that he calls them to be. But they need that experience. This has to be an experiential thing. So if someone is in love with Jesus, they're always going to be looking to grow. They're always going to be looking, where's he calling? Because they're a disciple. When we're not disciples, we're just happy doing what we've always done. So we're not looking at Jesus, we're looking at us. And so, but again, one of the biggest things I would say is that maybe encourage people, or you look at Christ Renews His Parish, which is a phenomenal thing, and it's in the parish, and that really renews the parish. But there's alpha programs for just getting people to reintroduce to the basic faith. There's so much out there, but I think it has to go beyond what's happening in the parish on a Sunday, and you need to get some people to go and do some of these retreats, and that's what really gets people on fire.
Thanks, Kathy. God bless you. Appreciate that phone call today. Next up is Greg in South Bend, Indiana, a first-time caller listening on Redeemer Radio. Greg, what's on your mind?
Hello, Greg.
Hi. Hello,
What's
Father.
up?
I've been a big fan of yours for a while. But,
I'm sorry. What's
my
up?
My question is about the Sixth Commandment.
Yep.
I unfortunately, I don't get physically involved. Sure. I know they say if the thought is there, but I do try to fight the thought. And,
sure.
Am I in mortal sin when the thought comes? Or, and just say heck with it and go do what I wanted to do?
I can't tell you in mortal sin we're not in confession. But again, What needs to happen is if you don't act on the thought, or you don't sit there and, again, serious matter, which would be sex outside of marriage, sex with oneself, sex with someone you're not married to, would always be objectively serious and could be mortal. You have to know that, and then you have to say yes to that completely. Full consent of the will, not part consent of the will, full consent of the will. Now, we're all tempted every day. I'm tempted even as a priest every single day. I am a human being. Human beings get tempted. Temptation is not sin. It's only when you say yes to the temptation that it becomes sinful. Now, whether it's venially sinful or mortally sinful, you really need to talk to your priest in confession. Normally, not always, but normally it's not mortally sinful unless you act physically on it. Normally. It can be, but normally it's not. So if it's just a thought and you might give into the thought a little much, that would be venially sinful. But whenever you act on it, of course, it's always mortally sinful. But again, there are occasions where it can be mortally sinful, but that's what you'd have to talk to your confessor about. You understand?
Yes.
Okay, great. God bless you.
Next stop, Decatur, Georgia. Chris is in Georgia listening to EWTN on The Quest. Chris, you're on with Father Larry.
Hello, Chris.
Hey, thanks. So a lot of people nowadays are making a big fuss and calling Mary the co-redemptress, and
yes.
I'm not. I was raised. I'm 65 years old, and my focus has always been on Jesus. Now, I'm thinking that Mary wasn't that. As there's only one Christ, but it seems to me that the angel could have asked several virgins of the time if they would be the mother of Jesus, and our Mary is the first one to say yes, and so it was. So I'm confused.
Well,
about
again, the Holy Father. Go ahead. The mediatrix of graces is kind of there because it's always been like a teaching. It's never been declared, and the Holy Father says he's not going to declare it. And the old Holy Father said the same thing, and John Paul II said the same thing. You know, they tried to get it declared again and again. But Mary, like Mother Teresa, as simple as it can be, Mother Teresa said, "No Mary, no Jesus." So she is... It's all Jesus, but she had to say yes to that. And when it talks about being the mediatrix of graces, that God uses her to bring graces to us. And that's very true, that she does do that. But we can all do that in some way or other. Whenever you and I pray for someone and doing something, we're bringing the grace and we're bringing salvation to others. It's all Christ's salvation. But again, there is it's been debated, and it's not new. When I was in seminary, I read the book by Dr. Maravelli, and I was really on fire about, let's get this proclaimed, and wrote letters and did all these things. And it's like, they didn't pay any attention to me. But then when I got older and I said, okay, let's really look at this, and why do we believe this, and da-da-da. It's part of course, it's in there, but it's not been declared, and they talk a lot of reasons why. But you're right. It's all Jesus, and Mary be the first one to say it's all Jesus. Do whatever he tells you. But she can be an instrument of his salvation, and it was her yes that brought Christ in, so she's very important to salvation history.
And ask Lucifer and his cohorts what happens when you don't want to give Mary her due.
Exactly.
Leah's in Cleveland, Ohio, watching us on YouTube today.
Hi, Leah.
Leah, you're on with Father Larry.
What's up?
Hello, Father Larry. Thank you for taking my call and my question. I'm having a hard time understanding. I've been listening about
just about a minute left, Leah. We need your question.
Okay, the work of evil, and like a lot of people just being influenced, and supposedly they react to holy things. I can understand how priests can be evil and still be up there and not react